When is Skynet?
I don't know.
Does Charlie know?
Always 9 p.m. Saturday on 146.88. Duh.
W5FC.
Good evening, everyone. This is NV5F. I'll be your net control for Skynet, and we will start in a few minutes at 9 o'clock. So if anybody needs to use the repeater before we begin Skynet, please go ahead and do so now. This is NV5F.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Good evening, everyone. This is NV5F. My name is Virginia, and I'll be your net control for this session of the CARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmission. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using W5FC-R station ID or the Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics: astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio and video links are available online. Go to W5FC.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check into the net electronically by going to the club website, W5FC.org. Look for tonight's Skynet announcement and click on the hot links to check in. We will acknowledge you on the air. And don't worry, if you want to check in the old-fashioned way via voice over the air or Echolink, we will continue to do that as well. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is approximately 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. First, general announcements. Next, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. Next, National Space Society events. Next, discussion topic of the evening. Next, after that, What's Up. After that, space exploration and space history. Next, constellation of the week. Space launches of the week, visible satellite passages, and if time permits, astronomical Q&A and a 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. We currently have the following people checked in via W5FC.org. Let's see, we've got KE5ICX, Tom in Corpus Christi, AG9SG, Antonio in Dallas, NV5F, me, Virginia in Fort Worth, KF5JHA, Chaz and Bob the Cat in Mesquite, K5MCD, Cody in Dallas, N5LIG, Dale in Dallas, N5BB, Bill in Irving, and AA5AH, Robert in Richardson. So let's now take any over-the-air short-time check-ins. If you're a short-time check-in, please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from this evening.
Kilo Bravo 5, Delta Mike Charlie, Brian in Roanoke, short time.
Okay, we've got KD5DMC Brian in Roanoke, short-time check-in. Thank you so much for getting on the log this evening. I hope you enjoy the bit of Skynet that you're here for. Next we have round 2, general check-ins. All check-ins from all check-ins over the air. If you would like to check into Skynet via RF, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
This is Whiskey, Bravo, 4, Mike, Foxtrot, India, WB4, MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
This is Kilo, Golf 5, Whiskey, Victor, Lima, James in North Carrollton. This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far, Northeast Dallas.
Okay, so over RF, we recognize KF5WL, Bill from Farmers Branch, WB4MFI, Ted in Dallas, KG5WVL, James in Carrollton, and W5GUS, Gus in Dallas. And next we will take Echolink check-ins. Anyone on Echolink who is interested in checking into Skynet, please come now. Call sign, name, and location.
This is Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Papa, Lima, Huey, Richardson.
This is Kilo 9, Alpha Hotel Oscar, Brian in Terrell.
Okay, it sounds like we got a couple more RF check-ins. We've got KF5 PLL Huey in Richardson and K9AHO, and that is Brian in Terrell, and you are on Echolink. I see you're there. So thank you for that. Thanks for a couple more. I've also got on Echolink, I do have Dale N5LIG. I will recognize you and go ahead and check you in and count you as Echolink. All right, again, my name is Virginia. My call sign is NV5F, and I am the Skynet net control this evening. Any check-in on any mode, if you haven't gotten on the list for Skynet and you want to get on the check-ins before we get started with the net business, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location.
This is Kilo, Golf 5, Charlie, Kilo, X-Ray, Gregory, Addison. Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell.
Okay, and we've added KG5, CKX, Gregory and Addison, and K5J, DW, John, and Coppell. So we've got a nice little group going here. All right, so let's get started. General announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come now with your general announcements. Okay, no announcements. I did notice that Tony is conspicuous by his absence, and he's usually our bringer of announcements. The announcements that I did hear earlier were a reminder that we do have the Cowtown Ham Fest is coming up next weekend in Fort Worth, in Forest Hill, I think is the actual proper place. So if you're interested in that, that is going to be Friday afternoon and evening next weekend, and then Saturday morning from like 8 to 3 or something like that. Early morning to early afternoon. I can't tell you the exact hours. I don't have them with me, but I do recall someone announcing that earlier on TechNet. Other general announcements that we have for this net and related nets is the AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 3 nets available to Dallas area residents, Dallas area hams. One is Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central. You can check into the National AMSAT net, learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or the new ones coming online. You'll need Echolink installed to hear this net. You can find the net under Groups and Star AMSAT Star or Asterisk AMSAT Asterisk, I guess. Also, a live radio link is available on their website, www.amsatnet.com, and this net originates in Houston, Texas. There are also 2 local AMSAT nets. Both of these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net controls as well as the others checked in. AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88, PL tone 110.9, Tuesday evenings. Tom N5HYP is the usual net control. All are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month is DARC Club Night, so there will be no AMSAT East net that night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 megahertz, PL tone 110.9, positive offset. And of course, the Dallas ARC has a lot of neat nets all during the week. If you'd like to see the schedule of nets, please go to w5fc.org and look on the tab that has the nets. There's a big, nice schedule of nets there. And of course, the big night is tonight, the night of nets. We've got our TechNet, which we had at 7 p.m. And then, of course, Skynet goes from 9 to 10:30 every Saturday night. And then, if you really like to stay up late, we've got the Afterglow movie net at 10:30 to midnight. And speaking of the Afterglow, let's hear from Tom, KE5ICX, about our Afterglow movie info this week.
Well, thank you, Virginia. This is Tom, KE5ICX, down in Corpus Christi. Here's tonight's info. Listen carefully, everyone. This might affect you. Ted Cooper wasn't just your run-of-the-mill FCC investigator. Sure, He busted arid hams, sending slow-scan TV pictures of their dirty socks to other hams, and talking endlessly about the sad state of affairs concerning Aries and Races, and how no one seemed to ever thank a ham for their service. Tirades which droned on endlessly, sometimes years before anyone gave out their identifying call sign on the air. But today was different. Today involved a UFO FCC infraction. It had been years since he busted an extraterrestrial, and today, a sunny day in Southern California, seemed to be the perfect time to take out an interplanetary menace. Cooper listened carefully for signs of infraction. There, on 80 meters, an alien with a general class license transmitting in the extra class frequencies. He noted the illegal intent and pulled out his Gort 2000 Yagi alien locator antenna. He called for backup. Local police, the FBI, the Department of Defense, and over 300 ham radio clubs entered the chase. Before they knew it, they had their alien trapped. He was in a spacesuit watching the 2 p.m. planetarium presentation at the Griffith Observatory, C2F. But before the presenter could explain the 9 moons of Saturn in all their boring detail, Cooper slapped the cuffs on our unsuspecting alien. Join us for Phantom from Space from 1953 tonight at 10:30 p.m. I do have a warning. Warning. This movie contains excessive voiceover narration, numerous phone calls to unseen imaginary actors, stock footage of every very large antennas, and a group smoking in enclosed, unventilated spaces. Viewer discretion is advised. If you want to sneak it in while this net is going on, you got it's about an hour and 15 minutes long. Go to the club website and look for the Skynet info. You'll find a hot link to Phantom from Space over on Plex, I think. Back to you, Virginia, KE5, ICX.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And this is Virginia, NV5S, your net control for Skynet. That sounds like a really great movie. I saw it last night. Okay. You can keep up with all CARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org, as Tom just directed you. We currently have the following people checked in via the website. Let me see if there's any more people who have joined us over here. And looks like there's no new check-ins over there. I'll take any additional check-ins from any mode at this time. If you'd like to get on the list, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location for Skynet.
This is November 8, Whiskey Romeo, N8WWR, Romy and Grapevine. Virginia, thank you for running that, man. Appreciate you.
This is Kilo Echo 5, Sierra Alpha Bravo. Daryl, mobile out in Carrollton.
Okay, and now we've added N8WWR, Romy, and Grapevine, and KE5 SAB, Daryl, and Carrollton Mobile. Thank you for joining us for Skynet. Next we have Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. This is our astronomical correspondent, Chaz. So take it away, Chaz.
Ooh, I'm a correspondent. That's awesome. Yes, this is Chaz and Bob the Cat. Bob the Cat's only about 35 centimeters away from the computer. So if I pay too much attention to the computer, he'll come over and lay on it. On January the 23rd is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and also held on Zoom. The featured speaker is going to be Philip Anderson of UTD. His topic is going to be space weather. That's an interesting thing that's been in the news. TASS also hosts the Saturday night public observing sessions in this area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the second Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, the stargazing is held at Frisco. Do we have any ham radio operators at the stargazing that would like to make a report? Please come now with your call sign. Well, Frisco's kind of a long way from a repeater, so didn't think that would happen. We do have a couple of things to see in the sky. Saturn, Jupiter, some star clusters. The Orion Nebula, M42, is an awesome thing. M45, the Pleiades. Oh, there's tons of things to see in the evening sky. All right, you can check the TASS website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing stations. And this is KF5J, back to our net control.
Okay, thank you so much, Chaz. Appreciate the Texas Astronomical Society announcement. Next, we have National Space Society events and activities with Bill in 5BD. So go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Virginia. This is N5BB. Before I start, I'd like to amplify your comments about upcoming immature local events. The Cowtown Ham Fest is on the 16th and 17th of January. That's this coming Friday and Saturday. The times are Friday, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., and Saturday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So let me repeat that. Cowtown Ham Fest is coming Friday and Saturday. Friday, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Location is the Forest Hill Civic Center. This is at 6901 Wichita Street in Forest Hill, Texas, 76140. I'll also comment that Winter Field Day is the following weekend, and most local clubs around here are doing it only on Saturday, January the 24th. The Winter Field Day period starts at 10 a.m. local time. That's 10 a.m. Central Time on Saturday, January 24th, 2 weeks from today. Okay, now back to the National Space Society. I happen to be the Vice President and the Membership Director of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. You can reach me at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE@BYROM.net. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. Our next chapter meeting will be at Spring Creek Barbecue on Highway 183 in Irving tomorrow, Sunday afternoon, January the 11th. The presentation will be Space 2026, a preview of the NASA, commercial space, and international launches planned in 2026 by our chapter president, Ken Ruffin. on the last Friday evening of each month from 6 to 8 p.m. The National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. You do not need to be a member of any organization to attend. The January Space Rendezvous will be held on Friday, January the 30th, always the last Friday of the month, unless that happens to be a major holiday. The Texas Space Summit Convention will be held September 21 to 23, 2026 at the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center in San Antonio. This is not a National Space Society event. I just learned about this convention here recently. It seems to be just a local thing here, I think produced with maybe the Texas state government and some other groups. This is the Texas Space Summit, and I believe this is the first one. Again, September 21 to 23, 2026 in San Antonio. The website is www.texasspacesummit.com. Again, www.texasspacesummit.com. Again, that's not a National Space Society event, and I can't answer much more than what's on the website. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill, N5BB, at his QRZ-listed email address or at space@byram.net. That's all I've got, Virginia. This is N5BB. Back to net. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill, so much. And I am Virginia. My call is NV5F, and I am your net control for Skynet this evening. And due to that fact, it falls on me to bring the discussion topic of the evening, which tonight is moon talk. It's amazing when I look at the news about space, how much news there is, and it's also amazing to me how little people know about what's going on in space news compared to how it was back in the 60s when space was a big new thing and we were trying to beat the Russians to the moon. So, believe it or not, NASA could be launching Artemis 2 to send astronauts into lunar space as soon as February. And I'll be talking about this and related topics this evening. I picked a couple of articles that I think are informative and hopefully will get people interested in the fact that we could be watching some cool moon, lunar video and stuff from lunar space here pretty soon. So the first one is NASA may be 1 month away from historic Artemis 2 astronaut launch around the moon. Okay, this is from space.com, and it's by Josh Dinner. Yes, Dinner or Diner, depending on how you like to pronounce that, if you're in the Dallas ARC. So let's see. If NASA's schedule holds a big if, humanity will launch on its return to the moon in a matter of weeks. We're at T-minus 1 month to liftoff of NASA's next astronaut mission to the moon if current schedules hold. Artemis 2, the first crewed mission of NASA's Artemis program, could launch as soon as February the 6th. The mission will fly NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Koch, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen on the first trip to lunar space in more than half a century, and will pave the way for what NASA intends to be an eventual permanent human presence on the moon. The Astro Quartet has spent the last few years training for their mission and completed several launch day dress rehearsals in recent months at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. When the big day arrives, they will board the Orion spacecraft atop NASA's massive Space Launch System SLS rocket and lift off on a 10-day mission to fly around the moon and back. If all goes according to plan, their launch will place Orion in Earth orbit, where the crew will complete a series of system checkouts on their spacecraft before committing to the burn for the moon. A translunar injection TLI burn of SLS's upper stage will place Orion on a free return trajectory, a figure-8 loop around the moon that slingshots the capsule back to Earth without the need for another burn of its engine. The trajectory doesn't insert Orion into lunar orbit, but it ensures the spacecraft and crew's return to Earth regardless of any anomalies they might encounter after TLI. Artemis 2 will be the first mission to send humans to the moon since the end of NASA's Apollo program and the departure of Apollo 17 astronauts from the moon in 1972, and has been nearly 2 decades in the making. SLS, Orion, and the space agency's plan to reboot its lunar program have had an evolving architecture at the cost of nearly $50 billion since 2006, with a roughly $4 billion per launch price tag at the moment. Artemis 1 launched in November 2022, successfully sending an uncrewed Orion capsule to and from lunar orbit. Designed as a spacecraft system shakedown, NASA had hoped Artemis 1 would put the program on a quick path to Artemis 2 and returning astronauts to the moon. Artemis 2's original 2023 target, however, was delayed by damage to Orion's heat shield caused during Artemis 1's re-entry through Earth's atmosphere. Having devised a fix to prevent that kind of damage from occurring again, NASA hopes the upcoming launch of Artemis 2 will put the program back on track, but complications with Artemis 3's infrastructure may throw another wrench into their timeline. Just as Artemis 1 was designed as an uncrewed shakedown of Orion during an extended space flight, Artemis 2 is a test flight to confirm that the spacecraft can sustain a crew in deep space. Artemis 3 will put astronauts on the lunar surface. To do so, NASA has contracted SpaceX's Starship as the Artemis program's first human landing services, HLS, vehicle. NASA is targeting 2027 for the launch of Artemis 3, but delays in Starship's development may push that mission to 2028. To avoid this, former NASA acting administrator Sean Duffy announced in October that he was considering reopening the HLS contract to alternative landers that could be made ready at an earlier date. For now, however, NASA is focused on getting Artemis 2 out the door and into space in a safe and timely manner. The full stock of the SLS rocket and Orion was completed, or the full stack rather of the SLS rocket and Orion was completed inside the vehicle assembly building at Kennedy Space Center in October and is currently awaiting rollout on the pad at Launch Complex 39A, which is expected to happen in just a handful of days. Artemis 2 continues to make steady progress, with rollout now less than 2 weeks away, NASA Press Secretary Bethany Stevens said in a video posted on X on January the 2nd. So continuing on to a tangent topic, we will talk about SpaceX Starship, which is the chosen landing system for Artemis 3. This article is titled SpaceX Starship Timeline Delays Astronaut Moon Landing for NASA's Artemis 3 Mission to 2028 Report. This is also by Josh Jenner of Space.com. At this rate, Starship will not be ready in time for NASA's schedule. NASA may have no choice but to postpone the launch of its next mission to land astronauts on the moon by more than a year. Growing pains for SpaceX's massive Starship rocket over the past year have stunted the timeline for the still-developing launch vehicle and spacecraft, which is contracted to land astronauts on the lunar surface as a part of NASA's Artemis 3 mission. The space agency is targeting 2027 for that launch, but SpaceX's own timeline seems to contradict that, reinforcing concerns previously voiced by NASA officials over Starship's readiness. According to an internal SpaceX document obtained by Politico, the company is targeting June 2026 for the orbital refueling demonstration between Starship vehicles and an uncrewed lunar landing in June 2027. If Starship manages to breeze through those qualification tests and stick to its current timeline, SpaceX estimates the earliest first attempt to complete a crewed mission to the surface of the moon could take place in September 2028. SpaceX has not yet conferred these dates to NASA, according to Politico, but plans to include them as part of an integrated master schedule it will provide in December. The company acknowledges their timeline falls outside their original NASA contract and hopes to determine new contract deadlines in coordination with the space agency, the report says. Artemis 3's predecessor, Artemis 2, could launch as soon as February 2026, based on current NASA timelines. That mission will launch astronauts around the moon, but doesn't include a lunar landing. Artemis 1 launched an uncrewed mission to lunar orbit in November 2022, so a delay of Artemis 3 to 2028 will set an average cadence longer than 2 years between Artemis program missions. By comparison, between 1968 and 1972, NASA's Apollo program launched one of its 11 missions about every 4.5 months. But the internal SpaceX document obtained by Politico shows the company's timeline for Starship no longer aligns with NASA's. Starship entered the test flight phase of its development in 2023 with the first integrated launch of its ship upper stage with its Super Heavy booster. In its first 2 years, the vehicle has reached some significant milestones, including the return and recovery of a Super Heavy booster using its launch tower's Mechazilla chopstick-like arms to catch the rocket out of mid-air. This year, however, has been a different story. Of Starship's 5 launches of 2025, the first 3 were not considered successful. Each resulted in the loss of the ship upper stage, either in space or during re-entry. Starship's latter 2 launches of the year represented complete turnarounds for the Block 2 version of the vehicle and managed to successfully demonstrate some of the spacecraft's critical capabilities. SpaceX is designing Starship for complete reusability, something never yet accomplished for an orbital launch vehicle. The company has perfected reflight refurbishment with its smaller Falcon 9 rocket booster, and while SpaceX has completed 500 launches and counting of its previously flown boosters, the rocket's second stage still remains a one-time use vehicle. The Starship SpaceX is aiming for reusability of the entire system. The company has already demonstrated 2 Super Heavy reflights and completed successful soft touchdowns in the ocean with ship during Starship's August 26th and October 13th test launches. Starship can carry considerably heavier payloads compared to the company's smaller Falcon 9 rocket, and SpaceX hopes to position Starship as humanity's spacecraft to Mars. Company CEO Elon Musk has voiced his hope that Starship will deliver up to 1 million people to the Red Planet in the next 20 years. Before it can do that, however, Starship needs to land NASA astronauts on the moon, and it has several more milestones to reach before the space agency puts its personnel on board. While Starship has found some slightly firmer footing on its path to operational qualifications, SpaceX still has to prove some of the vehicle's most critical capabilities, including orbital cryogenic fuel transfer between vehicles and an uncrewed lunar landing. To complete its responsibilities for Artemis 3, SpaceX estimates the Starship lunar lander will need up to be refueled in space 12 times to pack away enough propellant to land on the moon and launch back to lunar orbit. Once there, it will rendezvous with NASA's Orion spacecraft, which will ferry Artemis 3 astronauts back to Earth. So while terrestrial landing and reusability are crucial for Starship design, they aren't critical for NASA's mission to the moon. Still, the space agency may be at the mercy of SpaceX's design trajectory. So, I'm Virginia, ND5F, your net control for Skynet. That was awfully long, so I wanted to make sure and identify myself. And that is my presentation this evening about what's up with the lunar program. It sounds like it's pretty complicated, and based on the Starship progress, or the slow progress of Starship, along with the slow progress of Artemis, we could be seeing a lunar landing pushed out to 2028 or possibly even later. Does anyone out there have any questions or comments for tonight's presentation? If you do, I definitely invite discussion and thoughts on this topic. Please come now with your call sign. Okay, it's awful quiet out there in the blackness of space, but I will hope that perhaps about this time next month we will be talking about a manned launch to lunar orbit, or not lunar orbit, but lunar space. They would do a free return trajectory and just go around the moon once. I do have an opinion on that. They went into lunar orbit in 1968 with the Apollo 8 mission, and I'm somehow wondering why, if they go all the way to the moon, they wouldn't put the Artemis in orbit for at least a few orbits before they come back. It seems they're being even more cautious than they were back then, but then we're not racing the Russians to the moon. We might be racing the Chinese, but I think we're way ahead of them. So I guess that's why they're being as cautious as they are, and I can't blame them for that. Okay. Again, this is Virginia, ND5F, your net control for Skynet, and next we have What's Up, starring Chaz, KF5JHA. Tell us what's up.
Thank you, Virginia. I propose that we do an impromptu net when the launch happens, and also when it's going around the moon. 2 different impromptu nets on this repeater. That's what I propose. Anyway, Slide Master, slide number 2. What I'm talking about on slide, we have a video version of Skynet on the YouTube. Yep, we have a YouTube live video that's going on right now. How to get to that? Go to w5sc.org, click on the link, and you can be looking at the video version, the screenshots of what we're talking about right now. Okay, so we call this segment of Skynet What's Up because it's all about what's gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Slide Master, slide number 3. We've talked about the predicted nova of star T Coronaborealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness around 10th magnitude, which is much too faint to be seen with just your 2 eyes. T Coronaborealis was supposed to go nova more than a year ago. One recent prediction was for it to go nova on November the 10th, 2025. That didn't happen. So another prediction is on June 25th of this year. But when it does go nova, and it's not supernova, it's a nova. Novas can reoccur, supernovas go once. But nova of T Coronaborealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is second magnitude. Now I can see the North Star with just my two eyes from my very light polluted location in Mesquite, Texas. Slide master, slide number 4, please. This image of the sun was taken on January the 7th, just a few days ago, from the website spaceweather.com. I believe it comes from the Solar Dynamic Observatory, SDO. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you could use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. There is a prediction that there's going to be a large increase in solar activity from mid-February through mid-March. We'll see what that happens. We heard about that prediction, I think, a week ago. The sun is near its 11-year solar maximum. We are not quite sure when the solar maximum will occur until after it happens. I presented information on the solar cycles just about a month ago on Skynet. Slide master, slide number 5. The third quarter moon is now, January the 10th. So on January the 13th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 405,438 kilometers. January the 18th, the moon is new. The first quarter moon is on January the 25th. On January 29th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 365,871 kilometers. Slide master, slide number 6, please. So on January the 10th, that's this morning, there was a conjunction of the moon and the bright star spike on the early morning sky. I couldn't see it. It was cloudy here. Slide master, slide number 7. Get up early on the morning of January the 14th and face toward the southeast to observe the conjunction of the moon and the bright star Antares. Slide master, slide number 8. Looking toward the west, southwestern sky on the evening of January the 22nd, you can observe the conjunction of the moon, Saturn, and the planet Neptune. You'll need a telescope to observe Neptune. It's too faint to be seen with your two eyes, and you can't see with binoculars either. Slide master, slide number 9. On the afternoon of January the 27th, the moon will occult the star cluster M45, also known as the Pleiades. Now, a telescope will be required to observe the stars of the Pleiades during the daytime while they're disappearing behind the moon and while they're reappearing again. But again, this is a daytime event, so you won't be able to see with your two eyes. You'll need a telescope at least. Slide master, slide number 10. On the evening of January the 28th, the moon will still be close to the Pleiades and the planet Uranus. Slide master, slide number 11. On January the 31st, the conjunction of the moon, Jupiter, and the bright star Pollux in the early northwestern morning sky is possible. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 12. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or you just have a general astronomy question? Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Well, not hearing anything. So as the moon wanes, this is slide number 13. So to these words for this segment of Skynet, stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next time, well, actually, I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ, and this is the Skynet transmitting on W5FC repeater at 146.88 megahertz. Back to our net control, Virginia. It's yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Chaz. And also, I'd like to recognize Tom, KE5ICX. He is our slide master over there on YouTube. And the YouTube version of Skynet is very cool. And there's even a chat. You can type things to Tom if you get on there. It's fun. Okay, next we have space exploration and space history, and this is presented by Gus, W5GUS. So, Gus, please give us some cool space news and history from NV5F.
Okay, Virginia, thank you. W5GUS here with, how about some wet lava ball news? Recent observations of the exoplanet TOI 561 Baker is a wet lava ball orbiting extremely close to a star. Its star suggests that it may possess an atmosphere. This is a significant finding because it was previously thought that such a hot planet would not be able to retain an atmosphere. The James Webb Space Telescope was used to make this observation, which could change our understanding of planetary formation and evolution. Okay, and I guess a lot of people might have heard about this. NASA is preparing for the expedited return of 4 Crew 11 astronauts from the International Space Station on January 14th. It's coming Wednesday. This early departure from the ISS is due to a medical concern involving one of the crew members, necessitating a swift return to Earth. While the specific nature of the medical issue remains undisclosed for privacy reasons, the early return will alter the ISS crew rotation schedule, but contingency plans are in place. And this demonstrates the critical importance of flexible mission planning in human spaceflight. All right, James Webb Space. Next is the James Webb Space Telescope has made a fascinating new discovery, confirming a massive, supermassive black hole hurtling away from its host galaxy. This celestial behemoth is traveling at an astonishing speed of 2 million miles per hour, creating a cosmic wake. Scientists are studying this rare phenomenon to understand the dynamics of galaxy mergers and black hole recoils. This observation provides crucial data for refining models of how massive black holes evolve and interact within the universe. The powerful capabilities of the James Webb Space Telescope continue to unveil the universe's most extreme events. All right, and SpaceX in the news again has a productive start to 2026, successfully launching 29 Starlink satellites in its third mission of the year. These launches are crucial for expanding the company's ambitious internet constellation, bringing global broadband access closer to reality. And in addition to its own missions, SpaceX is also preparing for a significant launch for NASA, carrying the Pandora exoplanet studying satellite on January 11th. Well, that's tomorrow. The company's consistent launch cadence highlights its pivotal role in both commercial and scientific space endeavors. And this relentless pace underscores the growing accessibility of space. Oh, Also in the news, astronomers have recently announced the discovery of a rogue planet, an enigmatic celestial body similar to, in mass, to Saturn, freely drifting through the Milky Way galaxy. Unlike planets in our solar system, this object is not gravitationally bound to any star and wanders through interstellar space. Its existence provides valuable insights into planetary formation and ejection mechanisms from young stellar systems. Scientists believe many such rogue planets could populate our galaxy, potentially outnumbering stars. This discovery opens new avenues for understanding the diverse population of objects in our cosmos. And also, James Webb Space Telescope continues to surprise astronomers with its observations, this time revealing unusual cosmic object, tentatively dubbed platypus galaxies. These unique galactic structures challenge existing models of galaxy formation and evolution due to their unexpected shapes and characteristics. The term platypus reflects their unusual combination of features, much like the animal itself, the Australian animal itself. Scientists are now analyzing these observations to refine their understanding of how galaxies assemble and interact over cosmic timescales. These findings push the boundaries of what was previously thought possible in the early universe. Okay, we'll move on to space-related birthdays. January 4th, 1970, Christopher Cassidy was born. He's a ham. KF5 KDR, Kilo Foxtrot 5, Kilo Delta Romeo is his call. He is a retired NASA astronaut and former U.S. Navy SEAL. His first space flight was in 2009, a space shuttle mission to deliver the Japanese experiment module to the ISS, and he was the 500th person in space. Okay, January 6th, 1957, Michael Foale, F-O-A-L, Foale, F-O-A-L-E, was born, January 6, 57. He's a British-American astrophysicist and former NASA astronaut. He's flown on both the Space Shuttle and Soyuz and was the commander of Expedition 8 on the ISS. Okay, also January 6th, but in 1963, Philippe Perrin is a French test pilot and former astronaut. His one space flight was a mission to the ISS to deliver and install a mobile base station's system for the station's robotic arm. Okay, another January 6th, but in 1948, Guy Gardner is a retired American astronaut. He flew on 2 space shuttle missions, including one that deployed a tracking and data relay satellite. Okay, another January 6th, 1970, David St. Jacques. Let's see, 1970, he's a ham. KG5FYI, Kilo Golf 5, Foxtrot Yankee, India. He's a Canadian astronaut. His first space flight was a long-duration mission to the ISS. There's another guy coming up. He's talking about a long duration, but let's continue with David here. Long-duration mission to the ISS, during which he conducted a spacewalk and operated the Canada Arm 2. Okay, January 7th, 1941, Frederick Gregory was born. He's a former NASA astronaut and the first African-American to command a space shuttle mission. He is also a recipient of the Distinguished Flying Cross. Okay, also January 7th, Talget Muskbayev was born 1951, January 7th. Is a Kazakhstani cosmonaut who has flown on 3 space missions. He has served as the head of the Kazakh National Space Agency. It's called Cosmos. All right, let's move on to this week in space history. January 4th, 1959, Luna 1 flies past the moon. Soviet Union, this was January 4th, 59, Soviet Union's Luna 1 spacecraft became the first probe to fly past the moon, marking a major milestone in space exploration. Launched on January 2nd, 59, the spacecraft was intended to impact the lunar surface, but missed its target due to a malfunction in the guidance system. Despite this, Luna 1 provided the first ever direct observations of the solar wind and proved that the moon had no magnetic field. The mission ended when the spacecraft entered a heliocentric orbit, becoming the first human-made object to do so. Heliocentric orbit is where our sun is the center of the orbit path. Luna 1's legacy is in paving the way for the future lunar missions and our understanding of the solar system. Okay, January 5th, 1972, President Richard Nixon announced the beginning of the Space Shuttle program, which was a new era of reusable spacecraft for human flight at that time. This decision followed the success of the Apollo program and aimed to make space more accessible and affordable. The Space Shuttle was designed to launch like a rocket, operate in orbit like a spacecraft, and land like a glider. The program's development led to the construction of a fleet of orbiters, including Columbia, Challenger, Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour. These iconic vehicles would go on to fly 135 missions over 30 years, deploying satellites and building International Space Station and conducting groundbreaking research. Okay, January 7th, 1610, it's a while back, Galileo, using his newly crafted telescope, Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei observed 3 points of light near Jupiter that he initially thought were stars. But over the next few nights, he noticed that these points, along with the 4th one, were moving with the planet. This led him to the revolutionary conclusion that they were not stars, but moons orbiting Jupiter, the planet. This discovery of the Galilean moons, Io, Europa, and Ganymede, and Castillo, was a major blow to the geocentric model of the universe. It provided strong evidence for the Copernican model, which placed the sun at the center of the solar system. I guess that would be heliocentric orbits also. Okay, here's the long record-breaking guy in space here. Russian cosmonaut Valery Polyakov launched aboard a Soyuz spacecraft for a record-breaking mission on the Mir space station. This was January 8th, 1994. He would spend the next 437 days in orbit, the longest single human space flight in history. The primary goal of his mission was to study the long-term effects of microgravity on the human body, and I'm sure that's one way to do it. Polyakov's data has been invaluable for planning future long-duration missions, including those to Mars. His dedication and endurance remain an inspiration and a testament to the human spirit of exploration. I read a little more about him, and all total, he spent over like 600 days in space over several missions. Pretty interesting career. Look him up if you have the time and interest. Valeri, last name is Polyakov, Polyakov. Okay, January 10th, 1946, Project Diana happened. In a groundbreaking experiment, a team of scientists in New Jersey successfully bounced radar signals off the moon for the first time. This marked the birth of radio astronomy and proved that radio waves could penetrate the Earth's ionosphere. At the time, they weren't sure about that. The project used a modified radar set from World War II to send a series of pulses toward the moon. And the faint echoes were detected a few seconds later, confirming that the signals had traveled to the moon and back. This achievement opened up new possibilities for communication and the study of the cosmos. That is the end of this segment. So we'll pass it back to Virginia, NV5F. Go ahead, Virginia, from W5GUS.
Okay, thank you, Gus. This is Virginia, NV5F, Net Control for Skynet. Before we get to the constellation of the week, are there any more check-ins for Skynet? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. Okay, now it's time for Chaz to make his return for Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. KF5JHA, Chaz from NV5F. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Virginia. Slide Master, slide number 14. Yes, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's constellation this week is actually a twofer, two constellations. Perseus, the hero, and Camelopardalis, the giraffe. Yep, Camelopardalis is a giraffe. We'll explain that a little bit later. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Next is Slide Master, slide number 15, the jokes of the week. For those of you unfamiliar with this, the jokes of the week are related to the constellations that we're covering. And if you'd like to, if you're over on Echolink, you can make comments about the jokes. It's kind of hard to do that over the radio, but anyway, you can moan and boo and hiss. Don't throw your radio around because of the good or bad jokes. Here we go. Have you heard of the new color-changing superhero? Yeah? People call him Hue Man. Did it? Hue Man? Changing colors? Okay. What do you call a superhero completely made of ice? Just ice? Justice? I don't know if you don't know about the Justice League. That just went over your head. Okay. Who is Chaz's favorite comic book hero? The name is The punster, better known as the Punisher. Punisher. Maybe these aren't going too well. Okay, the next constellation. I respect giraffes. They're an animal you can look up to. Why are giraffes so slow to apologize? Because it takes them a long time to swallow their pride. I'll come with that with a funny one. What do you get when you cross a giraffe and a pig? Bacon and legs. All right, slide master, slide number 16. So the constellation Perseus. Perseus is the hero of the story involving several other constellations, which include Cetus, the sea monster, Andromeda, the princess, Cassiopeia, the queen, Cepheus, the king, and of course Pegasus, the flying horse. We've talked about this several times over the last couple of months because those constellations are all sort of grouped in this part of the sky. Slide master, slide number 17. Algol, or Beta Persei, is the demon star. It's one of the best-known stars in the sky. It's the first eclipsing binary star ever discovered and is one of the first variable stars to be found. Beta Persei is, in fact, a triple star system composed of a primary star, Beta Persei A, and which is eclipsed by Beta Persei B. The apparent magnitude of the system is around 2.1, but it drops to 3.4 every 2 days, 20 hours, and 49 minutes. And stays dimmer for about 10 hours, which is how long the eclipse lasts. A secondary eclipse occurs when the primary component occults the dimmer star. Algol is the prototype for a class of stars known as the Algol variable. The Algol system also emits X-rays and radio wave flares. Algol has an apparent magnitude of, again, 2.1 and is 92.8 light years in distance. It passed within 9.8 light years of the solar system, our solar system, about 7.3 million years ago. And its apparent magnitude at that time was about minus 2.5, which made it much brighter than the star Sirius, which is currently the brightest star in the sky. The next few minimum of Algol, I don't have the right date for that, never mind. But you can go to the AAVSO to find out when the next minimums are. Slide master, slide number 18. AAVSO is the American Association of Variable Stars Observers. McMillan was an observer for them for quite some time. All right, slide master, slide number 18, NGC 869 and 884. The double cluster is best seen in binoculars. These bright open clusters are easily visible to the naked eye as nebulous patches of light in the northern part of Perseus. NGC 869 is the brighter and more concentrated of the two. It's about 30 to 35 arc minutes in diameter and is dominated by two bright orange stars near its center. NGC 884 is slightly larger but more scattered and has brighter orange stars near, just a little bit off center. These clusters contain about 100 to 150 stars each. You can see them easily in dark skies with your two eyes. With binoculars, you can see them inside the city easily. I've seen them recently from the campus of Brookhaven College. Brookhaven campus of Dallas College. Slide master, slide number 19. Messier object number 34, large, bright, open cluster, easily seen in a viewfinder of a telescope and is best seen in binoculars, composed of many bright stars and a sprinkling of fainter stars. It's about 40 arc minutes in diameter and moderately concentrated at about its center. About 100 stars are counted with a moderate-sized telescope. It looks like a slightly fainter version of either the star clusters and of the double cluster. Slide master, slide number 20. Messier object number 76 is an interesting planetary nebula composed of two lobes each given at their own NGC number, and is commonly known as the Little Dumbbell Nebula. It resembles a smaller version of the famous planetary nebula in Vulpecula called M76, in Vulpecula called the Dumbbell Nebula. M76 handles magnification well and appears to be a rectangular in shape, which is kind of strange. The southwestern lobe of NGC 650 is also what it's known as the brighter of the two, and is separated from the fainter lobe by dark lanes of material, a remarkable object to look at. Sidemaster, slide number 21. Let's switch constellations to Camelopardalis, the Giraffe. It's a relatively modern constellation, having been introduced by our Flemish astronomer Perseus in 1612. The name Camelopardalis is Latin for a camel with leopard spots, which loosely describes the giraffe. In fact, the scientific name for the giraffe species is Giraffe camelopardalis. Sidemaster, slide number 22. Beta Camelopardalis is the brightest star in the Camelopardalis. Even though it is beta and not alpha, beta is the magnitude 4.0, which shows how dim the stars in Camelopardalis are. Beta is a double star and is usually split at low power. It's easy to split at 41 power in an 8-inch telescope. The primary star looks white, which might be just a touch yellow, and in comparison, the star looks blue. Camelopardalis 11 and 12, which is located near Beta Camelopardalis, is a challenge of the stars, the two stars, of being able to see them and split them with your unaided eye. Camelopardalis 11 is a magnitude 5.2, while Camelopardalis 12 is even fainter at 6.2, putting them right at the limit of human vision in very dark skies. Keppel and Sander described Camelopardalis 11 and 12 as forming a wide pair of white and deep yellow stars for binoculars and small telescopes at low power. Sidemaster, slide number 23. This is Kimball's Cascade and NGC 1502. 1502 is a nice open cluster at one end of Kimball's Cascade. Cascade is a long chain of about 20 unassociated stars. Originally, this site is the Kimball of Alberta, Canada. Kimball was called Walter Scott speaks about this activity. He named it Kimball's Cascade in his honor. The name stuck. Kimball's Cascade is one of the objects in the Astronomically Binocular Deep Sky Observing Club. Interestingly, NGC 1502 is not, even though it is an easy binocular object. The star cluster NGC 1502 clusters about 45 stars, that altogether shine at about 96. So, NGC 1502 is usually picked up on binoculars and microscopes. An 8-inch or larger instrument shows the cluster of all of its phases and moons, which includes two interesting multiple stars, Sphere 484 and Sphere 485. Sidemaster, slide number 24. IC, which means Index Catalog 342, is a nice face-on spiral galaxy. It's long thought to be possibly an outlying member of our own local group according to Burnham's Celestial Handbook and Walter Scott Houston's Deep Sky Wonders. This was never for certain, since the galaxy is near the plane of the Milky Way. The obscuration of the dust of our galaxy made the distance determination difficult. More recent observations have been shown that while it's not a local group member, it is part of the Coma Sculptor cloud of galaxies, which includes our local group of galaxies. Similar to M33 IC342, it's a fairly large object with an overall brightness spread out over a relatively large area of the sky, giving it a low surface brightness. Therefore, it's more easily noticed in a wide-field, short focal length ratio telescope. However, once picked up, some structure is visible in most amateur telescopes. This is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 25. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Perseus, the Hero, and Camelopardalis, the Giraffe. I've given you just a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 96 different observing programs. Most have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate of 10 from the Astronomical League in about a year. And that is Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Perseus, the Hero, and Camelopardalis, the Giraffe. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research and words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal from them for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now next week we'll take a look at just one constellation. I'm sure you've heard of this, Taurus the Pole. And this is KF5JJ Chaz saying goodnight in 73, back to our net control, Virginia and Shores.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. And I did find that those giraffe jokes were actually almost kind of funny. Thank you. We'll look forward to next week. And now, this is Virginia, NV5F, net control for Skynet. And now we have Tom, KE5ICX, if you want to do some space launches that are coming up and some satellite passages. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Virginia. This is KE5ICX again. Let's see. We have all of this information comes from spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule. January 11th, tomorrow, Falcon 9 launch at Twilight, called Twilight. This will be from SLC-4E at Vandenberg in California. This will be a ride-share mission called Twilight. Among the payloads launching aboard NASA's Pandora, a small satellite, which is designed to characterize the atmospheres of exoplanets and their hot stars, host stars. We talked about that earlier. The company Exo Launch is responsible for deploying 22 satellites during the mission, including D-Cubed 1, Perseus E1, which will demonstrate on-orbit 3D printing of a boom. The payloads will be deployed into the dusk-dawn sun-synchronous orbit. About 7.5 minutes after liftoff, Falcon 9 for space will land back at landing zone 4. January 11th, Falcon 9 Starlink 6-97. This will be from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral. Falcon 9 rocket will launch a batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. Then we have January 11th, 12th, a launch from, Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota, India. The ISRO will launch a Polar Satellite Vehicle, or PSLV, designation C-62. Oh boy, very descriptive on a rideshare mission. The primary payload will be the EOS-N1, an Earth observation satellite built by India's Defense Research and Development Organization and managed by New Space India Limited. There are 18 rideshare payloads aboard, including, according to news outlets in India, the Kestrel Initial Demonstrator, which is a 25-kilogram spacecraft from Spanish startup Orbital Paradigm, and will carry payloads for three customers, Elector, Leibniz, and University of Hanover, for an undisclosed customer. To test re-entry capability capabilities. This will also be the return to flight for the PSLV rocket. The last type of this rocket, PSLV C-61, saw mid-flight abnormality and was prevented an EOS-09 satellite from reaching orbit. That was on May 18th, 2025. I watched that mission on television, and it was pretty weird. It took a long time for them to really realize the satellite was truly gone. Starlink 6-98 will launch from SLC-40. This will be another batch of satellite Starlink V2 mini satellites. Then on February 1st will be an H3 launch of a QZS-7. This is from Yoshinobu Launch Complex at the Tagamishima Space Center. The H3 launch vehicle, developed through the partnership between Mitsubishi Heavy Industry and JAXA, will launch Michibiki number 7. This is the 9th launch of the H3 rocket as part of the quasi-zenith satellite system. Then we have, let's see, the last one I have for you tonight for that is the Vulcan on February 2nd, USS F-87, sounds super secret. This will be from SLC-41 at Cape Canaveral in Florida. The Vulcan rocket will launch the USS F-87 multi-manifest mission to geosynchronous orbit. The rocket will fly in the DC-4L configuration, which means that there will be 4 solid rocket boosters attached. Synchronous Space Situational Awareness Program System. That's all they say about it, a bunch of letters. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to take liberty here and go ahead and give visible satellite passages as we're wrapping up here. We have the International Space Station. All this is based in Dallas, actually Louisville, my old home. So it's close enough. All this information you can get from the heavensabove.com website. So here we go. We have on January 11th, at 1919 in the evening out of the west to reach its highest point at 1922 at 27 degrees, and it'll fall to the north-northwest at 26 degrees. Relatively low pass, but relatively bright. January 12th, minus 3.0 magnitude at 1831. And let's see here, I'm getting a little feedback here, so I hope you can hear me. I'll move on to the Tiangong Space Station. It has an excellent pass on January 17th, minus 2.1 magnitude at 6:16 in the morning out of the southwest. Reaches highest point at 6:18, and it'll fall to the east-northeast at 6:21. The next pass that's really good is January 18th, minus 1.2 magnitude. This will be at 6:53. It'll reach its highest point at 6:55 a.m., 33 degrees, and it'll fall to the northeast at 6:58. And then finally, January 19th, minus 1.6 magnitude. This one will be at 5:56 a.m. It'll reach its highest point at 5:56:58. Actually, it's coming out of shadow at 47 degrees, and it'll fall to the northeast at 5:59. If you've not seen the International Space Station or even Tiangong passing overhead, take a chance, go out one time and watch for them. Again, you can get all this information from heavensabove.com. Back to you, Virginia. This is KE5 ICX.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. And we're just about at the end, but before we do close down, I would like to acknowledge N5OF Clay in Mesquite has checked in online. Before I close Skynet, are there any final check-ins for the net? Okay, nothing heard. So, tonight we had 21 hams participating on the air. Thanks to all of you who checked in this evening for Skynet. We hope that you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact the net control
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie
Follow
Net.
topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is NV5F. My name is Virginia, and I will be closing this net at 10:30 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. And in about 5 minutes or so, we will be reconvening here for the afterglow. Thanks, everyone, and have a great evening discovering the universe. This is NV5F Clear.
Okay, everybody wander back to the radio, bring your popcorn, microwave, of course, because that's the only amount of time you had. 5 minutes, 4 minutes for popcorn, 5 minutes for a break. You did 5 minutes for popcorn and 4 minutes for a break. You've got burnt popcorn, and you're still not back. Okay, tonight's movie is called Phantom from Space. It's from 1953. It's an independently made American science fiction horror film produced by Lee Wilder. Don't know who that guy is. Starring Ted Cooper, Noreen Nash, Dick Sands, and Burt Wendland. These are the same people that Wilder worked with on other films, it says here, and his son Miles on the financing for distribution basis with United Artists and on occasion RKO Radio Pictures. Boy, does that show in this movie with, geez, let's not spend any money. Here's the plot. Federal Communications Commission, that's the FCC to you and I. Investigators arrive in a San Fernando Valley for what appears to be a flying saucer crash, causing massive interference with the tele-radio transmission. Receive eyewitness reports of what appears to be a man dressed in a bizarre outfit, which appears to be radioactive and thus a public threat. The man is actually a humanoid creature from outer space who is invisible without his spacesuit. They start a massive manhunt for the invisible radioactive alien running loose. The action culminates in Los Angeles, where the invisible alien has been tracked. He becomes trapped inside the famous Griffith Observatory. A woman lab assistant discovers that he can be seen using ultraviolet light. The alien attempts to communicate by tapping out a code, but no one can understand it. See, element 1 does come in handy. Now breathing heavily because his breathing gas reserves are now running low, he is trapped high up on Griffith's telescope upper platform. Because he can no longer survive without his breathing gas, he falters and then falls to his death. His body briefly becomes visible before completely evaporating, as is the plot and the no sensical part of this whole movie. Okay, well that's it, and that's about all that I remember from the thing. Let's see if there's anything else we need to know. You put in here, it says Phantom from Space uses stock footage of radar rigs. Some of this stock footage will later appear in Killers from Space. There's a colorized version that was released by Legend Films, doesn't say exactly when. There are a number of articles in here reviewed saying after a couple of unfired pot boilers in the late 1940s, Wilder hit his groove of incompetence with this no-budget wonder concerning the saddest space invader on record. Endless talky scenes alternate with the entire cast of 6 running back and forth in the old interior of the Griffith Planetarium. The poor invader is a bald, muscle-beach type in a radioactive spacesuit and a helmet that appears to be the same prop from Robot Monster, somewhat altered. Remember Robot Monster? That was the one with the gorilla suit and the sort of weird helmet on top. Could be. I kind of thought that myself. All that information is gleaned from the ever-popular Wikipedia.org English version, Phantom from Space. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Most of you know what the game is. We go ahead and check everybody in and ask, did you see the movie or not? If you didn't, that's okay. It might be to your benefit. Then we'll talk about the plot, characterization, and special or not so special effects from the fine film that you were assigned this week. So we'll go ahead and get started with check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, Phantom from Space from 1953?
November
November 5 Sierra Quebec Alpha. Ron did not see this one, but my ex-wife and I saw a really good movie tonight. N5SQA.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving. Yes, I saw this movie to the bitter end.
November, Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia. Yes, I saw this movie.
Ooh, let me try again. I think I got covered over by something. Ron, N5SQA, what did you go see?
Oh, you mean Tom? Good to hear your voice. We watched on Netflix the latest Knives Out movie, the Wake Up Dead Man. We thought it was really good. Know nothing about the one you guys are going to talk about tonight, so I'm just going to lurk for as long as I can stay awake. N5SQA.
Well, it sounds like it was good. It's got to be better than this one. I placed this film in the bottom 5 of worst movies I've ever seen, but others disagree with me. So I'll go ahead and ask Bill, N5DB, what do you think? What do you think about the plot? And then I'll get others checked in because I think we're just running a little late tonight.
Ooh, that was sooner than anticipated. This is N5BB. What did I think about the plot? I had a lot of problems with the plot because all they did was chase around an invisible creature. That's all they did. We didn't know why it was there exactly, really. We didn't see a spacecraft. Until the very end, we didn't see a body. The explanation for why we couldn't see him, except in ultraviolet light, was sorely lacking and non-scientific. And then just went on and on and on and on with them chasing him. But we didn't learn any more about the situation. There was nothing more to be learned from it. In other words, you could have, in 1 minute, you could have done the whole movie. Really, in 1 minute. They're searching for him with radios and the Geiger counter, and there's no explanation why both the Geiger counter and radio had anything to do with each other, but they used both. And then he was found to breathe some gases with methane, and then he was invisible, and then he vaporized. So I don't know. In general, the whole thing was unsatisfying. If they said something about where he'd come from, why he'd been there, anything more, if they'd been able to communicate with him more than that pathetic attempt. But no. So, to me, the plot was very, very thin. I was looking for more, and it just wasn't there. I guess I've got lots of points about some details in there, but I guess maybe I don't know if I need to mention these now or later. This is N5BB. I don't know if I'll throw them in there. Well, okay, I'll go ahead and mention them. I was aggravated that Mobile 7, I believe, that the antenna on top of their vehicle was a Yagi pointed straight up. It looked really goofy. And then Mobile 1 had a direction-finding loop. That was more reasonable. But Mobile 7 having a Yagi pointed straight up was crazy. It wasn't the Federal Communications Commission. It was just the Communications Commission that they worked for. I guess they were trying to keep the FCC from bothering them. Also, it wasn't the Griffith Observatory. It was the Griffith something else. So it's like they were trying to protect the organizations. I didn't like the fact that the things evaporated. That made no sense. I didn't like the invisibility. And I'll leave a little bit more for special effects. But I was not impressed. N5BB, back to net.
All right, thank you, Bill. Yeah, I kind of echo your feelings on that. But before I spew my guts on it, I'll see if there are others out there. Come on, folks. Check in. Tonight's movie is Phantom from Space from 1953. If turkeys could fly. Come now.
This is November 8, Whiskey Romeo. NAWWR Romeo and Grapevine. I just got done with it.
November Victor 5, Fox, Virginia in Fort Worth. Yes, I saw this movie. Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this movie.
All right, excellent. We got three more here. Well, we'll start at the top here. N8WWR. Romy, welcome. You actually watched this fine film. You couldn't find a better one to watch for your inaugural? That's okay. Tell us. This round is talking about the plot. What did you think about the plot? And if you were like me, the plot, it should have been buried in.
Tom, thanks for running the net. This isn't my inaugural, though. Back in 2017, sounds like a long time ago, I did a couple nets in a row back at the end of 2017, a couple movies in a row. I was gonna watch. I can watch a movie every week, and I've really followed through with all these kinds of goals in my life. But anyways, you were describing the movie earlier. I'm like, man, this sounds really good, and I got time to watch it. And the wife watched it until she's like, do we get to see the man in the suit, the guy in the suit? I was like, oh, maybe I'll see him at the end. She stayed awake till she saw him there at the oil field or whatever. And was that a Yagi or was that a long periodic? I called it a Yagi first. And I was like, maybe it's a long periodic, but maybe I don't know. It's pretty similar antennas. Yeah, 7-element pointed straight towards the sky. And initially I thought that was that woody. I thought that was a loop, but it is a direction loop. It's got a little parabolic kind of, I guess, plastic or glass or whatever they had in there. And you have the Communications Commission, and I like how the guy at the police station was, he was interrogating him, kind of sort of, he said, had that bandage on his forehead, little bandage on his neck there, and they're like, when he started walking towards us, he just swung on him. And the detective like, would you just attack somebody just because of what they're wearing? And he's like, you got a guy walking up here with a helmet on with pipes coming out of it or whatever. And the detective referred to him as a kid. That guy looks older than him, in my opinion there. But my wife, before she made it out, she's like, was there any transatlantic accents that you detected so far? I'm like, no, I have not. yeah. This is So let me squeeze this one in and actually participate, do some call participation there. I'm gonna turn it back over to that control. I got. Thanks for letting me ramble. NAW there.
Man, I'm going to check and find out what you're on tonight. You must be on a caffeine binge or something. You are so animated this evening. Man, the rest of us are like falling asleep and falling out of our chairs and everything. You're ready to go. Okay, well, don't go away. We've got to talk about the fine acting coming up in a minute or two. So, all right, I got you checked in. And on the first round, next is Virginia NV5S. She admits seeing this film. Tell us what you think about the plot.
Thanks, Tom. There was a plot? Okay, well, first of all, that's normal for Romy. It's his normal mode. M.O. for Romy is super energetic. He's from somewhere in the Northeast, I can tell, by the energetic cadence of his speech. I watched this movie last night with a bunch of people on Facebook Messenger, and I was under the influence of gin and tonic. Tonight I'm also under the influence of gin and tonic because you can't let your tonic water go flat, so you have to keep drinking gin and tonics until you run out of tonic water. And I think my gin and tonic tonight was a double. I poured a lot of gin. So I'm kind of chill, but a little bit more probably colorful than I will normally be on here. This movie, like Bill said, the plot was like literally something that was 1 minute long. It was like they detected this, when we watch these things on Friday night, we just message each other, and I lose track of what's going on. So, it was really, literally super simple plot. I thought the premise could have been interesting. It could have been, something that was dramatic and tragic, and it kind of was at the end. It was kind of sad to me that the guy, ended up dying at the end. That kind of was no fun. But the movie itself was very repetitive. It was just a lot of talking, a lot of exposition, and I'm a big fan of good exposition. And I don't just think exposition is good because it's exposition. This was just a lot of talking. And I think the fact that the guy was invisible had more to do with their lack of a budget. Also the fact that there was a lot of talking and very little interesting going on had a lot to do with the fact that there was not much of a budget for this movie. The antenna talk from earlier, it makes me wonder, was a log periodic even a thing back then? Had they even come up with a log periodic at the point that this movie was made? I'm guessing it was probably a Yagi that was pointing straight up. But it was cool that they had, the FCC and this weird code that the guy was tapping out. At first, I think it's Morse code, but it's just 3, 2, 1, or 2, 3, 1. It's like these taps that aren't very Morse code-like, just kind of like numbers, but they're not even real Morse code numbers. So, and I mean, there was a potential here, I think, for a plot between the Phantom face and a lady who, of course, there's always that. They've got to have the scene that something happens that for some reason it makes her scream. I'm not sure why she screamed at the thing she screamed at. There was a dog that barked a lot, and that was kind of annoying. I think that was supposed to be animals usually are to make the plot sort of more accessible for people. Maybe animals are cute, and they're always played like they have some kind of sensitivity to things that people don't have, and maybe the dog could like see or hear this phantom from space. I think this plot had a lot of potential to be something kind of tragic and interesting. But all I can think is that the breathing sound effects were ripped off by Stanley Kubrick, because, he watched a ton of science fiction before he made 2001. And like I said, I think there could be something interesting or even likable about this plot if it were a plot. It was literally a premise that didn't really have a good story to tell, and then, when they ran out of time, or they were like, okay, this film is long enough, let's kill this guy and make it sad at the end. And like you said, there was a lot of things, something standing in for something that like the FCC or the Griffith Observatory or whatever. I guess trying not to step on any toes or infringe on any rights or whatever. So what's really, okay, this is funny, the very end of this where they're like, oh, it's morning, and they like open the dome of the observatory and the sunlight comes in. I have to reference a film called Universe that came out. It was made by the Canadian Film Board, and it was really good, and Stanley Kubrick loved it, and it was a real big influence on 2001. In fact, it was narrated by Douglas Rain, and at the very end of Universe, it has kind of a through line. There's this astronomer that they're kind of following through the sort of, here's how astronomers do this, but then there was all this cool, like, trippy stuff about galaxies and planets, and it was really neat looking, even though it was in black and white. It was really well done. But at the end they have this cool, like, ending where, because it's all kind of brooding and sort of almost noir-like, and then at the end, even the music is super avant-garde and I think influenced the music choices in 2001. But at the very end of the film, it's like, oh, it's morning, and the astronomer guy who's sort of the character in the movie, like, the sun comes up and he walks out from the observatory wherever they're doing that near Toronto or whatever. He walks out and gets in his car and drives home, and there's this really, like, hopeful, beautiful sounding, like, very heartwarming music at the end. It's a really neat film. If you haven't seen Universe, go online and look up Universe by Canadian Film Board, circa 1960, I think. I'm wondering if that little hopeful thing of them opening the dome and the sun coming in might have been like an influence on Universe. So anyway, maybe that's just me, but that was what I thought at the end, because there was a weird little hopeful feeling at the end after the alien evaporated, after their long night of chasing him and finding him, and nothing really happening except him dying, which was sad. So, and the dog was annoying and barked a lot. And I think that was meant to just be like kind of a cute or heartwarming sort of accessible thing in the plot, but there wasn't much of a plot, just a lot of talking and a premise that could have been an interesting and kind of tragic plot. So that's it for me. Too much gin on this end, I think. Back to net, NV5F.
Well, thank you, Virginia. That was very enlightening. And I was thinking, how could we replicate that hopeful ending and from Universe with Douglas Rain and the astronomer going off into the distance? And the only way I could simulate it with this movie, which basically has a similar ending, is take a hammer and hit myself in the head until I go unconscious. Then when I wake up, I continue to hit myself in the head until I go unconscious again. That's about the only way I could possibly equate those two movies together. But at any rate, it's fine. I'm glad you liked it, or something, liked the idea, or they were inspired, or something. I don't know. I guess this movie came before the universe, but who knows? Who cares? Really, do we care? Let's see here. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, what you think about the plot?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I don't think I can top our last two reviewers, but I'm thinking we all should have went to Virginia's house last night and watched the movie. Probably been a lot more fun. And maybe from these movies, that's what we need is some gin to make it better. Because, yeah, I agree with everybody. The plot was pretty bad. It was, yeah, very one note. It was pretty much just been chasing this guy around, or alien, whatever you want to call him. I agree with, I thought it was, this movie should have been better because, hey, we started out in airplanes. That's always good. Then we had radios and cars. Well, that's always good. But, yeah, we had these odd antennas sticking straight up and then driving through trees and somehow never catching any of the antennas on anything. And then, too, they really, then they said, well, the guy's not transmitting anything, but we're tracing his static. So it's like, well, okay, I know you can, when you have electrical noise from like a bad transformer, yes, it can be found using radios, but, yeah, they didn't explain that very well. But anyway, so that was really pretty much the whole thing. It started out like it was going to be a mystery movie. We had the first guy that died, then we had the two lovers, and, they're investigating them. Did the guy live with them, kill him? But then after that, they just kind of went just strictly chasing this guy. And then, yeah, there's a lot of really weird, unexplained science in this. Why did this stuff magically dissolve? Did the guy didn't seem to have anything on him to push a button to cause it to dissolve? It was just very strange. But I agree, this could have had potential. The idea wasn't completely bad. After all, there's only so much our eyes can actually see in the spectrum, so maybe there could be an alien out there that we could not actually see. So that's not a bad idea, but the way they explained why didn't make any sense at all. So that didn't help matters. And they did show that he was trying to speak to them, but it was in a pitch that we couldn't hear. Once again, that's obviously a real thing, and that's why the dog was responding to him. But once again, he had this part where he tried to communicate. I agree there, but this was the biggest missed point of this whole movie. It might have been worth the chasing around and all that had we at the end had they actually found a way to communicate with him and actually had a somewhat even a basic conversation of why he was really here, and what was going on, and if they could help him. Yeah, it would be nice if he'd lived, because obviously he wasn't intentionally hurting people. But, even if he had passed away, it'd been nice to have had some point to this movie. Had they been able to communicate with him, maybe there could have been a point to it. But other than that, yeah, it's kind of a fail overall, unfortunately. I don't know if I put it in the top 5 worst, but it's definitely not a good movie. I wouldn't recommend it. Something I do recommend. I started watching last week and through this week. Over Christmas, I bought, they had on Blu-ray Babylon 5 series on sale. So I picked it up, and I haven't watched it since it was originally came out, and I've been enjoying it. It's been nice to watch some decent sci-fi. So there's my throw out there. Everybody's throwing out something else they like better. So that's why I'm throwing out something better. Watch Babylon 5. Anyway, that's all I got. Back to that. KB9SOK.
Well, thank you, Sean. Thank you for your enthusiastic comments. So far, we've had enthusiastic comments about this very unenthusiastic movie. But, yeah, and by the way, I agree with you. I love Babylon 5. I can pick any episode out of the 5 seasons and enjoy it. The only thing that doesn't translate well for Babylon 5 is the 2-hour movies have a tendency to drag, with the exception of the pilot, which is, I think, an hour and a half long. It was not bad. Wasn't as good as the series was, but I think Joe was, and others, he wrote most of the episodes. It does particularly well in the 1-hour format. It moves along at a nice pace. Movies, not so much. Okay, well, let's see. Let me ask if anyone else is out there who would like to check in before I give my comments. Anyone else want to join us? Please come now with your call sign, your name. Did you see tonight's movie for the discussion, which is, what is the name of this thing? What do we got? Chasm from Space from 1953.
N5SQA recheck.
Well, Ron, N5SQA, go right ahead.
Okay, let me check my notes. Here it is, words to live by. You can't let your tonic go flat. I'm beginning to understand this net more than I ever have before. N5SQA.
Well, yes, Ron, alcohol always seems to make the discussion more lively and more coherent, because after watching these films, there is some mental brain damage that occurs along the way. So you have to revitalize or kill off whatever's left with alcohol. It's very effective, and it's very calming for the average bad science fiction movie watcher. That's what it is. All right. Well, while Ron thinks about that, maybe going to his liquor cabinet, let me go ahead and give my comments about the film. I kind of did in a little synopsis of the film that I put out earlier tonight, and that is, anytime a movie that's not a documentary that has narration in it, be prepared. It is probably not going to be good, because we all know that the narration takes away from the need to actually film something, which would be expensive. So we don't do that. We simply have a narration to pull together various scenes that either didn't get filmed or were never going to be filmed or ran out of film to film the film. That happens too. I think one of our guys, I can't remember who it was, the guy who makes the Sharknado and all that, I'll think of his name. At any rate, he says that when you're making films like that before the digital age, you had to make sure you had enough film to finish the film. Very important. And you had the money, because that would be your most expensive part, because you always found friends to go ahead and act in your film. There was no shortage of people to do that. So there's that. Okay, you got the narration, you know that's going to be terrible, right? The next thing is spending forever talking on the telephone. Yes, talking to people, I mentioned that as well. But it's true, watch these films, long, involved discussions about nothing. And then, of course, in the room, you've got people talking to one another, and a limited cast, 6 people maybe, 5.5 on a good day. They just keep talking to one another and never saying anything. So it doesn't matter, because we don't have a plot. And let's see, the alien and the so-called Morse code. How about that, right? It would have been more fun to just simply, say, we have tap, tap, tap. Oh, you're trying to tell me that you're running out of air. Tap, 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 tap. I mean, at the very least, you could have done something like tap once if you think you're running out of air. Tap twice if you're not. Tap once if you're from Spica, type 2 if you're not. And then you could fill out the plot, because you could go through all 10 million stars that we can see in the Northern Hemisphere. And that would be the whole movie of him tapping the scissors. That's all I can say. And his message probably was, please take my name off this movie, in whatever space code he was using. Let's see, any other notes? And the alien. What about the alien? You know, he wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't trying to kill anybody. He just happened to be irradiated and running around nude. What did you expect? You know, aliens do that all the time. We've seen that before. What was it? Starman did the same thing, and the Terminator did that, and I'm sure there are other films where people run around nude in the film. I don't know. And they're space aliens. Don't forget the space aliens. They got to be space aliens. Superman, same thing. As a kid. Let's think about these things, you know? Nature is what it is. It's just they were invisible in this one. Okay, well, that was certainly boring. Let's see. We talked to Ron. He's very excited about the fact that you can drink while watching films, so Ron's good there. Thumbs up, Ron. Alcohol is good for you, especially when watching sci-fi films. So the next section is our illustrious actors of 6. This is an ensemble cast of people in ensembles. Well, it shows more than that, but most of these people just appeared and disappeared very quickly, but there was a group. I'm also looking here on the cast list for Wikipedia, and about half the cast doesn't even get a hot link to their name about their acting career, because I think part of this was just one film they were in. They were probably friends with the director and ended up in it. Like Sandy Sanders. You think that's his first name? Obviously, it's his nickname from the last name, Sanders, as policeman, not even the policeman or a policeman, just policeman, as there was only one policeman, which is not true because there was another one, a police sergeant. Jim Bannon played that. At any rate, I digress. Let's go to Bill, N5BB. Bill, you've got a long list of things to say about our cast, so please go ahead from KE5 ICX.
Oh my. This is N5BB. Well, here's what I want to say about the cast. We should cast them out. Ha ha ha. Cast them out. I didn't bother to do a web search or IMDb search on any of these actors because I did not recognize them, and I didn't really care what else they were in because it couldn't have been anything significant. You know, I think I respected the woman scientist the most for several reasons. I'm talking about the characterization and the acting. Number one, in several cases, she didn't immediately scream. I'm not saying in all cases, but in several cases, she actually maintained her cool. Good sign for the way that they write women parts. The second thing is she was married and her husband was there, and so they didn't immediately say the woman was the one that the visiting SCC people or something were hitting on. No, that didn't really happen. So that's another good point. It wasn't overly sexist that way. And she seemed like she was actually doing some science in there, although she kept on mixing strange brews that had dry ice in them or something, leading them to, have a little bit of smoky haze. So they had her just messing with things kind of to make it seem like she was doing something. But that was more than any of the other people were doing. What were they doing? They were walking around with Geiger counters, kind of not knowing what they were doing. And she actually figured out some of the things. It's, again, some of the best acting was the dog. The dog solved a lot of the problems. If they had just watched the dog, they probably would have figured it out a lot earlier, okay? They should have just watched the dog. And that was her dog, so that was kind of good. I thought that the character that got treated most poorly, in other words, he was the low person on the totem pole, was the journalist, the newspaper guy. They treated him like dirt, and they put him in places. They just forced him in places he shouldn't have been. Like, how did he get into the facility at the end? Who knows? He wouldn't tell them. And, of course, he's the one that took this flash lamp that spooked out the alien and led to something dissolving. I don't know what. And he was treated as a goofball, like he was the one that just didn't know what he was doing. In a lot of these movies from back then, the journalist is the goofy guy that does stupid things, you know, releases secret information, publishes things that are untrue, and it gets in the way of the good guys, and in general just is a pain. And sure enough, that's exactly what he, you know, how he acted in this one. You know, after the first part of the movie, the guy should have just put him in jail or told him, don't come anywhere near here, or we're gonna put you in jail or do something to you. Let's see, who else? The alien, whoever played that, was, of course, mainly the special effects people, but near the end, it was kind of meaningless. Saw evidently a body there. Did anybody notice when the body, right as it was deteriorating at the end, and they showed the feet? I think I may have counted 6 toes on the foot, but I'm not going to pull this movie up and double-check it, but I just wonder if anybody else thought they saw that. I may have miscounted. Let's see, what else about the characterization? I was aggravated by, this is part of the writing and characterization and everything. For a huge portion of the movie, they had the FCC guy, the Communication Commission, going around, communicating with each other. Yes, that direction. Oh, it's over there. It's over there. It's over there. I don't hear it. I hear it now. I don't hear it now. And then the police interrogate these different people, and they say, oh, he was in this thing that looked like a diver's suit, and I didn't see any head. And everybody said the same thing, and they repeated that over and over and over again. They all said the same thing, and they didn't believe him, but they all said the same thing. And that just wasted the whole center part of the movie. That's just, they didn't have to do that over 5 times, but they did. They needed something to use up those minutes because they had no other plot and no other action and no other characterization to do. So, I think that's it, Tom. Inside BD.
Well, thank you, Bill. And you counted the toes correctly. There were 6 toes on the guy's foot. I noticed that when I saw it, I thought, okay, this is the end of the movie. I hope the words end are going to pop up any time now. And I looked at it. He's got 6 toes. Yeah, he had 6 toes. So it stands confirmed. Okay, next up is Romy and AWWR. Romy, what did you think about our characters in our fine film? Do you have any favorites that you would like to draw attention to from KE5 ICX?
Hey, thank you, Tom, again for running the net, and thanks for the participants there, NAWWR, Romy and Grapevine. I guess my favorite would be the detective, just because he initially, in initial scene, he's like, what was a guy? He's like, well, what did that guy look like? And and he's like, no, you just sit right there, bub, kind of sort of deal, or kiddo. Wouldn't let him leave. The guy with the bandage on his head there. Well, I like that kind of stern police detective. I know some police stations have like Station 6 or Division 6 or something. And I was like, well, they're out in the middle of nowhere, aren't they? Well, they're not like in a city, so like it wouldn't be like, you know, multiple police houses or whatever, stations, precincts, divisions, districts, whatever you want to call them, that I noticed. And also another thing was interesting. I know I'm kind of speaking out of turn here. They were given different signal strengths to and one was like, oh, I got a 3. It's a 4 over here. Well, what was the scale? What's the highest it could be? You know what I mean? Is it scale 5, scale 10, what, you know? And, yeah, it was, you know, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen, that's for certain. I mean, you guys watch these movies every week, and I got to start, you know, being more involved. But, you know, when you don't have them that often, you kind of enjoy them. And, yeah, Tom, nothing over here, man. You know, I do have ADD, and I was given, you know, let me read that. On Adderall for a number of years, and I knew I was going to abuse it, and I did, and abused some other stimulants that, you know, kind of come out of Colombia. And 141 days sober, so, and I can't drink, because if I drink, I want to do other things, so. I love gin. When I fell off the wagon last year, I'm sorry, I'm digressing a little bit. I drank half a bottle of Tanqueray up in Ardmore before the Ham Fest. So I wonder what kind of gin is this Virginia drinking, just out of curiosity. And one more side note, I said this before. Sean, living in Fort Worth, is actually east of me. You know, Grapevine is supposed to be between Dallas and Fort Worth. Sean is east of me, so he's that weird anomaly there. So, yeah, my favorite character would be the detective there. That's it. Back to that control, NAW.
Well, thank you, Romy. And, well, yes, if you're going to fall off the wagon, you might as well start watching movies and drink gin, drink orange gin, Tanqueray. I don't know. Whatever works. Gin and tonic's good. The tonic is actually good for you, especially if you have malaria, or if you're driving drunk and you have malaria. It's perfect. Okay, next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, how's the gin and tonic doing, and what do you think about our characters? I count 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, 17 different characters, of which only 5 got to talk about boring things. Everybody else just threw numbers out. That's my opinion. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, the gin and tonic is almost gone. Let's see. My usual gin is Bombay Sapphire, which I really like, but this is actually an indigo gin, which is available in several different brands. It's very cool because it's kind of a blue, purplish blue color, like a dark blue, and when you put tonic in it, the acidity in the tonic actually makes it turn purple, like almost lavender or lilac colored. So it's kind of cool. And it tastes different than Bombay Sapphire. It's not as dry. But no gin for Romy. So yeah, just keep watching these movies so that you won't want to drink any gin. Hopefully they will suffice. And as far as characters go, yeah, there were a lot of characters in this who didn't say much. They just ran around, and the few action scenes there were people, you know, just doing generic FCC kind of tracking sort of things, and there was a lot of talking on the phone, and I didn't like the dog. I thought it was annoying because all it did was bark, and, you know, I guess when you're not sure what to do, put an animal or a kid in there to make people like your movie. So yeah, I wasn't really a fan of the dog. I will go with what Bill said. They did actually try to make the woman character in this, like, sensitive, however not, like, just terrified of everything. And she did eventually scream, but she also seemed very compassionate and smart, like she was trying to figure out what this character, with this guy from outer space, like, she was trying to figure out, like, how he was trying to communicate and the code and all that. So I liked her as a character. I actually liked the Phantom from outer space. He was likable. He was sympathetic to me. I wanted him to make contact, and I was sad when he died. And the plot was super simple, so that's mainly what I figured happened in this. I didn't really see a whole lot else happening, and like I said, this was sort of a opportunity wasted. It may not have been a great plot, but it could have been better than it was. The premise for it was, a lot of it was, I think, well, we want to have some kind of alien or monster, but we don't have a lot of a budget, so we can just make him invisible and reuse the helmet from Robot Monster. Anyway, I wish Brenda was here, because, that was one of her favorites. Good old Robot Monster. Roman, he was one of our favorites. But yeah, I mean, characters here, they were okay, but just a lot of talking and not a whole lot of character and a lot of stereotypes. But I do agree with Bill. The female character was at least treated more like she was smart. But she seemed fairly preoccupied with her dog, and someone was saying, how many times are they going to, like, call out the name of the character? I believe her name was Barbara, and I said I think they called the dog's name more times than they called the woman's name, and I just found the dog kind of not very interesting or helpful to the plot. It was mostly just barking all the time. And I guess people like dogs, so it's kind of a shoe-in if you have a dog in your movie. I don't know. Anyway, I'm probably not making a whole lot of sense, but yeah. So gin and tonic, mostly because Afterglow is an excuse to sit and eat the leftover snacks from my visit with my friend today, that I bought some snacks for us to eat. So I'm eating all the leftover snacks and then having to drink the gin and tonic because, as I said before, and that Ron reiterated, you can't let your tonic water go flat. You've got to use it up. So that means you have to make gin and tonics for about 3 days in a row. Back to net, NV5F.
I think one of the great things about this is we've discovered new things to talk about. When the movie is so horrible, we can talk about what we eat and what we're drinking and why we're drinking. Well, we know why we're drinking because of the fine films, but, giving details about the various things is good. This helps us to support each other's habits and foibles. So I'm good with that. Okay, next up is Sean and KB9SOK. Sean, your thoughts on the characterization and acting in our fine film from KE5ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. I don't know that I have a whole lot to add what everybody else has said. I agree. Probably my favorite actor was the alien, because, well, he could have the dog, so he didn't have any boring dialogue to transfer or to say. Very typical characters. I don't know why. I agree with Bill on why they always in these old movies, why the reporters were always aloof or drunk or always a problem. I don't know. Were reporters back in the 50s and 60s that way? So I don't know why they always do that, but they did. Most of them is just boring dialogue. It wasn't really what the actor's fault, so I can't really blame them for that. Yeah, it was nice actually to see the woman scientists being treated with respect and actually, treated like a normal person. So that was nice, actually. I did notice that as well. So yeah, other than that, probably my favorite character was the alien and the female scientist, and my least favorite was the dog. And I love animals, but it got very annoying after a while. But the constant barking, it's like that kid crying in the movie theater that won't just stop and they won't take him out. Same way with the dog. Anyway, don't have a whole lot to add to this round, unfortunately. So back to that, KB9, that's okay.
As all the IDs are over, I get a local ID here too because it's over radio through a hotspot. But no, I probably don't have much to add. I have even less than you. But before I do make my feeble comments, does anyone else want to check in? Please come now.
Kilo 5 Juliet Delta Whiskey, John and Compel, just listening in, guys.
And we got John woke up too, K5JDW. How about that? Well, hi John. Hey, do you have a favorite worst movie you've ever seen? The one that you couldn't stand? Just tell us. What's the worst movie you've ever seen? And then we're going to put it on the list so that we can blame someone.
Well, unfortunately, I can't remember the name of it. It starts with a J, and it's about some German. It starts out with a German guy that's he's a dentist. He's in some kind of little stagecoach thing. Runs out and frees a guy, and then goes after these people he's after. I don't know, like Django or something like that. That's probably one of the worst movies I've seen recently. K5JW.
Oh, I have that problem too. I will say this though, one of the funniest things was I found a review for this movie. It was done by an interneter that has a website with bad movies on it, and he said this movie was just so overburdened with dialogue that went nowhere that it reminded him of a better movie called My Dinner with Andre. And I have made My Dinner with Andre a running joke for the last 30 years as far as a slow-moving, talky movie. And if you ever want to see a slow-moving, talky movie, that's it. The two people eating lunch together. And you say, geez, okay, well, it looks like that you're not even in a real restaurant. It really is a stage thing, and they don't go anywhere. They eat their entire meal and talk to each other. That's the whole movie, called My Dinner with Andre, which I guess I have to correct because it would be called My Lunch with Andre if it were lunch. So it's got to be dinner after 6 o'clock. My Dinner with Andre. Look it up. You won't be disappointed. No, you'll be disappointed. No, you'll be immensely disappointed. Let's see. Any characters that I like? No. Do I remember any of the characters? Not really. I do remember the alien Dick Sands as the Phantom. He was kind of a pitiful character. I felt bad when he died because he didn't do anything wrong and then he ends up dead. The alien didn't bother doing it. He was like Michael Rennie, except Michael Rennie was packing some sort of device, teaching device, and then he shot him. Don't do that. Don't pull out things that pop out of your hand and expect the military not to shoot you. That happens sometimes. But at any rate, it's a bad move. Don't do that. Let's see. The dog, yeah, I agree. Dog was annoying, very annoying, and it's continuous barking. But yeah. So I don't know. The characters are all forgettable. There wasn't anything I remember. I remember the scientist lady. She did fine. She didn't put her hands in the white. I think she had a white jacket, white lab coat at some point. I don't remember. I was drifting in and out of consciousness there for a while. But, oh well. No, don't have anything to say beyond that. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to the final round. We're running a little ahead, not by too much, but we'll go ahead and just do this final round, which is the special or not so special effects. Starting off with, let me see, Ron's listening in, so Ron, you can pop in at any time, but we'll go ahead and go down the list of people who have seen or tried to watch or were watching this film under the influence, any of those things. Bill, N5DB, Bill, special effects, anything you want to talk about on the film that you want to rail on. Now is your chance. Go ahead, from KE5ICX.
Well, thank you, Tom. This is N5DB. I was not watching the movie under any special influences, except I went to the second funeral in a week today. The first one was Brenda last Saturday. And then funeral today of somebody that I'd worked with for over 25 years, but he, after a long illness, passed away. So, you know, under that spell of 2 funerals in a week, the people that were just a little bit older than me, but not a lot older than me, were kind of got me in the mood for this movie, kind of a down mood. Special effects. I mentioned the invented. By the way, the log periodic was invented. So this movie supposedly came out in 1953. It's released. I don't know when it was actually filmed. The log periodic was originally developed in 1952 by a guy doing it to work for the U.S. military, and it was classified until 55 or 56. So no, that was not a log periodic antenna pointed up because it didn't exist at that point. I think it was some kind of guy. We talked about the antennas and the crazy the communications about the Communication Commission. However, near the end of the movie, when the alien gets into the mobile unit 1, I believe, one of those mobile units, he sits there and tweaks around on the radio, which seems to be off. Because I didn't see any, it wasn't lit up. But he's tweaking it around. He's spinning the dials around like crazy. You might say, what radio was that? Ooh, that was a very famous, popular radio. That was actually a military version, because it had a little panel that the resolution wasn't good enough to read what was on the panel. There was a military version of a Helicrafter's SX-28, or it could have been an SX-28A. I think it was just a regular SX-28 Super Skywriter. You could see the Super Skywriter words in there if you froze the image, which I did. And that was a 500 kHz to 43 megahertz receiver that was made in the 40s and was very popular. A lot of hams had them later. So that would have been a reasonable radio to have. But it ran on 120 volts. Unless they had a dynamotor, they didn't have inverters back then. Unless they had a 120 volt generator, which usually was a dynamotor. This one would run off the 6 volt battery system in the car, a little motor with a generator running at 120 volts. Unless they had one of those in the vehicle, they couldn't have run that radio in there. So that wasn't really very realistic. You know, if it was in a trailer with a generator in it, I could see that. But in a car, there weren't that many HF radios put in cars back then, and they were special radios. They weren't like that one. So, you know, say on the radio A, and it wasn't lit up. I mean, the thing had dial lights, the SX28 is, it wasn't turned on. They were just spinning dials. So I call that special effects. Also, the Griffith Observatory. They had to open the dome and close the dome and climb up near the telescope on the top, go up the stairs and things. That was a special effect, wasn't it? You know, the thing would have been pretty boring if they weren't at the observatory. At least they had something to distract you a tiny amount. Was running down the hallways in the observatory. You know, that kind of distracted you from the stupid plot, or plot. The special effects of the alien evaporating, I did not understand. Wasn't explained. Just the special effects of ultraviolet light, letting you see it, wasn't explained, made no sense to me. We already mentioned the 6 toes on the alien, the slightly odd-shaped head, maybe. I don't know. Big deal. I guess they had a special effect of that body sitting there and evaporating, but I did not understand why it evaporated. That made no sense to me. If they tried to explain it, it went over my head. I think it didn't go over my head. I think they didn't even try to explain it. They just, evaporates. Why did the photographer shooting off the flash bulb in his camera make something in the alien evaporate on the floor and the alien gets angry and went away? I don't know. I guess that's a special effect, but I didn't understand it. Again, there's so much in this movie that's the same thing over and over. We see Unit 1, Mobile 1. We see Mobile 7. We see the base station. We see the scientists in the room. We go back to Mobile 1. We go back to Mobile 2. We go back to the base station. We so many of these things over and over and over again, but there's not really any additional special effects. They just had the same things over and over and over and over again until I was and they were running and running and running around the observatory. And the dog is barking and barking and barking and chasing and chasing and chasing. Boring, boring, and boring. I think that's it. N5ED.
Yeah, I'm afraid, Bill, you're right. So let's see if anybody else can pull something out of this turkey. Back to Romy, N8WWR. Romy, what was the most exciting, most meaningful part of our film tonight to you? And then whatever you want to talk about.
I personally got excited when they were at the the refinery or whatever it was called there, the oil field or whatever, when they first saw the guy running up around the roof there. And it was interesting to use the same footage of him on that roof and running between the buildings. And I got excited there because I thought I was going to have to wait till the very end to see him for some reason. The wife planted that idea in my head there. And like I said, it's not that bad. But I normally don't watch movies. I watch YouTube all the time now, and I'm watching the same movies I've watched, repetitively. I saw Back to the Future a couple months ago in the theater. I saw it at the theater in '85. I saw it apparently a couple years ago too. I forgot about that, and then the anniversary here. But I digressed a little bit there. And I didn't mention Tanqueray. Tanqueray is my favorite gin there, and very good stuff there. And yeah. And when I'm on stimulants there, Tom, I can't form a sentence usually. That's how the wife knows I'm whatever. So it slows me down. So I'm very very quick and whatever. So if you look around this ham shack, it would be very hard to believe that I have ADD. It'd be sense of sarcasm in my voice there. I got there, Tom, and thanks for letting me ramble and kind of be candid the way I like to be there. Appreciate you, Tom, and be safe down there in Corpus. NEWWR.
All right, thanks, Romy. And do be a repeat customer. I enjoy your conversation and comments. Don't forget the lockdown. Remember the lockdown on the company menu. Okay, next up is Virginia, ND5 Ask. You get to make any comments you want, including special effects or anything else that you want to talk about. KE5, ICX.
Okay, well, I guess they tried to have special effects when this guy was invisible. They had to do a few special things that might have been groundbreaking. I don't really know, because I know there have been a couple of other Invisible Man or whatever kind of movies, but I don't know when they came out, so I'm not sure what the timeline is on doing special effects for there being an invisible person. Other than that, there weren't a whole lot of special effects in this. I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot here that was meaningful or interesting or special, or whether it was music or whatever, but yeah, I can't really think of much that was. There was a lot of theremin music. Yeah, I can talk about the music. The theremin music. I'm not sure what the first use of a theremin in a science fiction movie was, but these guys took it to an extreme, to the point where it was nerve-wracking at times. Usually it's done as sort of a colorful thing to imply something spooky or alien, but the use of theremin in this, the music in this was kind of over the top, and I'm not sure, Tom, if you know the history or whatever, but I felt like it was a little bit too much, and that, along with all the weird, like, heterodyne radio sound effects, it was a lot of just high-pitched sounds here, and then the dog barking. The soundtrack of this did get kind of monotonous and a little shrill at times. I do remember that, along with them always yelling the dog's name or the lady's name or whatever. Very repetitive, very, almost like they're filling time. They're trying to squeeze like a 15-minute story into an hour and 15-minute movie, because they didn't have enough budget to make the movie that interesting, so they had to, take a super simple story and spread it out over a long period of time. So, not much else to say. I think the gin is starting to wear off, which is good. But yeah, that's all for me. Back to net in V5F.
Very good. Thank you, Virginia. Next up, TV9SOK. Sean, your final comments on our fine film this evening. Whatever you'd like. Choose your poison. From KE5, ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, there wasn't much in the way of special effects. Bill, thanks for verifying that was a real radio in the car, even if it wasn't functional. I never took the time to actually pause it. I assumed it was just they put together a wooden panel with some gauges and just to make it look like a radio, but okay, at least they did use a real radio. Other than that, yeah, we had the invisible stuff. Obviously, you could tell the stuff was being moved with, fish line and wire and try to emulate the Invisible Man. Where the flash went off and the stuff smoke was supposedly the guy dropping the helmet bell, and that's supposed to be the helmet dissolving. Why, once again, they never explain any of that. And then, yeah, kind of back to a plot thing. Why did the guy become invisible when he died? That didn't make no sense. And I did think it was funny one part, all of them running around at the end with their infrared lights that needed to be plugged in. Like, what were they going to do with that? And when they finally get to there, oh, there's a plug. So that was kind of ridiculous. But anyway, yeah. No, not much of special effects. Yeah, the music was, it didn't really bother me all that much, but yeah, it really wasn't. Seemed like it was all that special. So yeah, not a lot here to talk about in that area. So, you know, as usual, the conversation night was way more enjoyable than the movie as always, and always looking forward to the next one. That's all for me, Tom. This is KB9S. Okay, back to net.
All right, thank you, Sean. Thanks for your comments. Let's see here. We've got listen only. What was I going to say? Oh, special effects-wise, yes. The flying saucer was probably the worst flying saucer non-special effect I've ever seen. I've seen the Muppets do a better job with the flying saucer. I don't know what the hell that thing was. It didn't even look like a saucer. It just kind of flying through the air in a couple of scenes, and we didn't get much of it at all. I mean, there were actual fake flying saucer film they could have inserted into this thing. I'm sure it would have been free. That looked more convincing than whatever the hell that thing was that was on the screen. Looked like a... let's see, where's something... Oh, I was going to mention the special effects. About the only good thing in the special effects probably was the final part where what do we call him? The alien, whatever he is, the Phantom. The Phantom himself glowed or had special paint or something. I don't know. He was kind of otherworldly, plus he had an extra toe, I guess. That was okay. The special effects were done by Howard Anderson, which, if I remember correctly, and I have to go back and look, is from, he started a special effects house out in Southern California called Anderson Effects or something, which was in the 60s. This is, of course, the 1950s, but in the 1960s, that's where Star Trek, the original series, went and had all their special effects done, model work, inserted ray gun stuff and all of that. It was all done by Anderson's company, if I remember correctly. Could be wrong. I'll have to go back and look. There's no hot link in the thing. I see it in the list here on the wiki page, but I'm pretty sure it's the same Anderson. Howard Anderson rings the bell when they talk about it. So... there you have it. Okay, next week's movie, I went through and I was looking at my list. I do have a list here, and I go back, and before I assign the movie, I just double check to see if the links are still good, because they go down a lot, especially with newer films that actually have a lease time or expiration on the streaming site. So most of the newer films that I had listed in here aren't there anymore. They come and they go. They may stay anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, so there's not a very long time that you can see them. So I still have them on the list, but they're not available. But I did find one film that is there. It is science fiction horror. It's called Creature from 1985. It's over on Roku. I'll send that link out. I'm going to double check it to make sure we've not seen that film before. The plot sounds vaguely familiar, but then all these plots sound vaguely familiar. It actually has a plot that sounds a lot like this Creature one. Sounds really like a similar plot to what we watched tonight, so who knows. But that'll be next week's film. I'll send the information out. Anybody listening that want to be added, just send an email to me at my call sign, Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX at yahoo.com. Let me know that you want on the list, and I'll put you on the list, and you'll get the information Sunday, usually morning before noon, depends on me. But I'll have the information on the film and the links. All films are free. I never assign anything that, unless it's just a really popular film that everybody in the universe has seen. I never assign a film that you have to pay for. That'd be crazy. There's too many streaming services to take advantage of. And too many horrible films out there for free. Maybe too many. Maybe we should report them to the Better Business Bureau or Better Film Bureau. Don't know. Okay, with that, we are done. Thank you all for checking in tonight. See, I think that'll do it. With that, I'll say 7-3. Good night, everyone. This is KE5ICX. Now clear.
Thanks, Tom. And Bill, I forgot to mention, thank you for that tidbit about the log periodic, the dates and all that. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate your wealth of knowledge there, Bill. Good night, everyone. NAW.
Oh, and I was right. I did a look on Howard A. Anderson, who did the special effects for our not-so-special movie, and indeed he is the guy, special effects artist for the original series, I Love Lucy, The Untouchables, Brady Bunch, Happy Days, Kung Fu, Cheers, and several movies, including Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, Jack the Giant Killer, Blazing Saddles, and, believe it or not, Superman from 1982, I think. So, how about them apples? All right, that's it. Good night. KE5ICX clear.
Superman was 1978 in V5F.
And I don't think they can make Blazing Saddles today. They really couldn't. NAW here. Blessing.
Well, I couldn't remember. I knew it wasn't 19.